Answering questions of middle schoolers. Here we go. First question. What proof do we have that God exists? Now, I'm going to probably answer this question a few times because a few people answered it, but I might try to answer it a little bit differently. And this time, I'm going to go a little bit smaller. And in the history of the world, there's been a lot of arguments for the existence of God. And so, like, sometimes there's, like, for example, there's a guy named Aristotle. He was a Greek philosopher. And he argued that everything that happens has a cause, right? So, this pen. I dropped the pen. Why did I drop the pen? Well, because I wanted to illustrate something. So why did I want to illustrate something? Because, yeah, I could start tracing things back, and eventually you could find that a whole slew of things led to me dropping the pen. And you could actually trace it all the way back to the very first person. And eventually you get to God. What is known as the unmoved mover. There's someone that actually was not moved into motion. There is someone out there that no one puts him into motion. He is self-sufficient. And that would be God, the unmoved mover. That was Aristotle's argument for God. Some people talk about morality. We have some concept in our minds, in the way we live, that there is good. That there's this such thing as right and wrong. You know, I see in the news today that there's the horrible shooting in Maine. And I'm pretty certain most of us are sitting or look at that news and say, that's horrible. That's terrible. I don't think there's anybody sitting there, oh, okay, whatever. Things happen. It's just a thing. No, we all are pretty much in the mindset that this is horrible and we don't want it to happen anymore. Which is a confession of right and wrong. Now, we may disagree with some of the rights and wrongs, it's some morality, but we don't disagree that there's a morality, that there's a right and wrong. And it's really quite remarkable, like the Ten Commandments. You shall have no other gods before me. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping holy. Honor your father and mother, etc., etc. It's amazing how many religions that had no connection with one another have these same morals. And so many have argued that is example. It is a reminder that there is a God, there's someone who wrote those morals onto our heart, that we know this all already. Another argument is to the complexity of the world, that the world is extremely complex, and it's so fine-tuned, and the way it best makes sense is maybe that somebody created it. It's known as the argument of the watchmaker. If you were walking along the street and you happen to come across a watch on the ground, you wouldn't assume it just happened by chance. It was there by chance. You would assume somebody built it, somebody created it. And so the same thing with the earth, the world, existence, the universe. It is so complex, it's really hard to look at it and say, oh, this just happened by accident. What was the analogy I heard one person say was that the possibility of all of existence happening by chance is like the possibility of a tornado ripping through a junkyard and perfectly putting together a 747 airplane. It's not going to happen. And so same kind of argument. I mean, those are not perfect arguments. They're really not. So those are some of the arguments that God exists. But the argument that I would probably go with the most for that God exists, and it goes to Jesus. And I would say that the argument is that Jesus rose from the dead. And he claimed to be God. And if he rose from the dead and he claimed to be God, I'd say there's a God. Now, I'm trying to keep this video short. I don't want to go too far over the 5-minute mark, but I will save that for another video. But that's a good starting point of some of these arguments for the existence of God. So keep following and see what comes next.